Today we're going to be learning how to multiply and divide fractions. We'll start by learning how to multiply a fraction. Let's start out with a rather easy problem. Let's find, how about 1/3 times 1/4. This is a rather simple problem, but it'll get our point across. Remember, in a fraction that your top number is always your numerator and your bottom number is always your denominator. When you're multiplying fractions, it doesn't really matter if you have like denominators or not. They can be unlike, as we have here, because you simply multiply straight across. What we'll do is we will rewrite this and we will say 1 times 1 over 3 times 4. So that we know that 1 times 1 is 1, draw our fraction bar, and 3 times 4 is 12. So that the answer to 1/3 times 1/4 is equal to 1/12. The only other thing you would have to do would be to simplify your answer. In this case, 1/12 is already in its simplest form. Let's try another example. Let's do 1/2 times 3/5. 1/2 times 3/5. Once again, all you need to do is multiply out your numerators, which is 1 times 3. Put that over your denominators, which is 2 times 5. So 1 times 3 is 3. Draw your fraction bar. 2 times 5 is 10. Once again, you would look to see if you could reduce this answer any more. You cannot, so we know that 1/2 times 3/5 is equal to 3 over 10. Now let's try 1/3 times 3/4. 1/3 times 3/4. Once again, go ahead and rewrite this. Putting your numerators on top, 1 times 3, over your denominators, 3 times 4. Simply multiply. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times 4 is 12. Now we need to look at this, because this is one that we can indeed reduce, because we know that we can take and divide our numerator by 3 as well as our denominator by 3 to get a reduced answer. 3 divided by 3 is equal to 1. 12 divided by 3 would be equal to 4. So we know now that 1/3 times 3/4 is equal to 1/4, and that is it's in the simplest terms that it can go into. Let's try one more. 2/3 times 5/6. 2/3 times 5 over 6. Once again, you want to rewrite your original problem, taking your numerators, putting them on top. 2 times 5, draw your fraction bar, and 3 times 6. Now we know that 2 times 5 is going to be equal to 10, and 3 times 6 is going to be equal to 18. And once again, you need to check to see, can this number be simplified? Indeed it can. We know that we can divide 10 by 2, and we can divide 18 by 2, because 10 divided by 2 is equal to 5, and 18 divided by 2 is equal to 9. Now it cannot be reduced any further, so we know that 2/3 times 5/6 is equal to 5 over 9. Okay, we're going to go ahead and try something just a little bit harder. Now we're going to learn how to multiply a fraction and a whole number. Now what I'm talking about is, let's say for instance we have 3/4 times 4. Now this is not as difficult as it first looks. First thing you want to do is you want to rewrite your problem so that you have two fractions to multiply. So we're going to leave 3/4 alone. And we know that any number over 1 is equal to itself, because 4 divided by 1 would indeed be equal to 4. Now we just rewrite our fraction, both fractions, and combine the numerators and denominators. So we'll say 3 times 4, and we'll put that over 4 times 1. That's going to equal 3 times 4 would be 12. Fraction bar, 4 times 1 is 4. Now you can look at this number and immediately you should recognize that this is an improper fraction. The numerator is larger than the denominator. We can never leave our answer in this form. We must reduce this. We know that 12 divided by 4 is equal to 3. So 3/4 times 4 is equal to 3. Let's try another one. Let's do 2/3 times 6. 2/3 times the whole number of 6. Once again, you must put this whole number in a fractional form. So we're going to say 2/3 times 6 over 1, because as I said earlier, any number divided by 1 is equal to itself. Then we're going to rewrite our fractional forms into, we're going to combine our numerators and then we'll combine our denominators. In this case, we'll say 2 times 6. That will be over 3 times 1. Then we just do our simple math. 2 times 6 is equal to 12. 3 times 1 is equal to 3. Once again, we have an improper fraction here. We know that this can be reduced or written in a simpler form. In this case, 12 divided by 3 is equal to 4. So that we know that 2/3 times 6 is equal to 4. Let's try another one here. 3/4 times 5. 3/4 times the whole number of 5. Once again, we're going to rewrite our problem. We're going to say 3/4 times 5 over 1. Now we have our fraction, everything's written in a fractional form. We're going to rewrite our numerators. We're going to say 3 times 5 over 4 times 1. We know that 3 times 5 is equal to 15, and we know that 4 times 1 is equal to 4. Now, I can tell you by looking at this that 4 is not going to go into 15 evenly. So, you can always come to your scratch paper if you're unsure of your answer. And let's do some arithmetic. This is very basic arithmetic. Well, we're going to divide 4 into 15. We know that 4 will not go into 1, but 4 will, however, go into 15 3 times, because 3 times 4 is equal to 12. 5 take away 2 leaves me 3. 1 minus 1 leaves me nothing. Therefore, I know that 4 will go into 15 3 complete holes with 3/4 left over. What I did is I took my remainder, which was also 3, and I put it back over the number I was dividing into my numerator by. In this case, now we know that 3/4 times 5 is equal to 3 3/4. Okay, let's try one more. This time we're going to turn things around just a little bit. We're going to say 3 times 1/2. 3 times 1/2. And you will quickly see that it does not matter where you have that whole number. It can be the first number in your problem, or it could be your second number. In this case now, it's our first problem. So we're going to turn this into a fractional form. We're going to say 3 over 1. Move our other fraction straight across, times 1/2. Then we're going to combine our numerators. We're going to say 3 times 1 over 1 times 2. And now we can just do our simple arithmetic. 3 times 1 is 3. 1 times 2 is 2. And we know that we can divide 2 into 3, and we're going to get 1 whole with 1 remainder left over, and we bring our denominator straight over, so that now we know that 3 times 1/2 is equal to 1 1/2. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to show you another item that you might run into where if you've got the numerator and the denominators, they both have a common factor, you can simplify before you multiply. Let's try 3 over 6 times 5 over, correction, let's try 3/4. 3/4 times 5 over 6. Now, when I first look at this problem, I can go ahead and do it like we were doing before and just multiply our numerator straight across and our denominator straight across, and you will get an answer, but then you will have to reduce it. Let's first go ahead and work it that way, and then I'm going to show you how you can take the same problem, and if you simplify it first, it saves you a little work in the long run. So we know from the other screens that we can take and combine our numerators, 3 times 5, put that over 4 times 6. Let's just do our arithmetic. 3 times 5 is indeed 15, and 4 times 6 is 24. Now we need to look at 15 over 24, and we can determine that it can indeed be both the numerator and the denominator can both be divided by the number 3. And this is how we can reduce it. Now, 15 divided by 3 leaves me 5, and 24 divided by 3 leaves me 8. So that we know now that 3/4 times 5/6 is equal to 5/8. Now, let's go back and see what we could have done in the beginning of this problem to have saved us a step. We can write the same problem, which is 3/4 times 5/6. If we look, we know that this numerator and this denominator have 3 in common, both of which can be divided by 3. If we divide 3 by 3, we'll get 1. We'll leave that denominator the same. And over here, if we divide this 6 by 3, we will get the 5, or the numerator will remain the same, which will be 5, but 6 divided by 3 would be 2. And then if we just go ahead and combine our numerators, 1 times 5, put that over our denominators, 4 times 2, we will quickly see that 1 times 5 is equal to 5, and 4 times 2 is equal to 8. And as you can see, now we also know that 3/4 times 5/6 is equal to 5/8, which is identical to what we learned up here. It's just a quicker way. If you can recognize that you've got a numerator and denominator in common, it might save you a little bit of extra work down the road a little. Let's go ahead and try another one of these just in case. This time we've got 5/6 times 9/10. Now we can quickly see that 5 and 10 have something in common here. Both of these numbers can be divided by 5. Let's rewrite our problem. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Let's move our denominator over, times, this time we're going to move our numerator over. We're not going to change that 9, we're going to leave it the same. But our denominator changed because 10 divided by 5 would equal to 2. Now we're just going to combine our numerators and our denominators and say 1 times 9 over 6 times 2. Now we just do our basic arithmetic. 1 times 9 is 9, and 6 times 2 is 12. Now I can quickly look at this number, and I realize right away that 9 can be divided by 3 evenly, and so can 12. So that 9 divided by 3 would be 3, and 12 divided by 3 would be equal to 4. Therefore, 5/6 times 9/10 is equal to 3/4. Okay, let's go ahead and try one last problem here. We'll say that we've got 3/5, and we're going to multiply that times the whole number of 10. Now we have to think back to what we first started with. Anytime you're multiplying a fraction times a whole number, you need to rewrite that fraction. We're going to say 3/5 you're going to rewrite your whole number to make it into a fraction. You'll say 3/5 times 10 over 1, because any number divided by 1 is equal to itself. Now we can look at this and quickly see that 5 and 10 have something in common. So if we divide this denominator by 5 and this numerator by 5, then we'll get a much smaller number for us to work with. We'll go ahead and draw our fraction bar here. We're going to say 3 over 5 divided by 5 would be a 1. We'll multiply that times this numerator, which 10 divided by 5 will give me 2, and bring our denominator straight across. Let's just do our basic arithmetic now. We're going to say 3 times 2, and that's going to be equal to 6. 1 times 1 is 1, and we know that any number divided by 1 is equal to itself. In this case, we know now that 3 over 5 times the whole number of 10 is actually equal to 6. Okay, now we're going to learn how to divide fractions. There's something you must know in order to divide a fraction. First, you need to know what a reciprocal is. When I'm talking about a reciprocal, let's spell that out so you can see what it looks like. R-E-C-I-P-R-O-C-A-L. Reciprocal. Now, a reciprocal is actually the inverted form of a number. In other words, if I have 1/4, my reciprocal, this, is going to be equal to 4 over 1. All I did was I put my denominator up on top. It now is my numerator, and I brought my numerator down, and it is now my denominator. That's a very important concept you must remember. Reciprocal. Put that word in your memory banks because you will need it. Let's try a very simple problem. We'll call this example 1 down here. Let's divide 1/8 divided by 3/4. Now, as I just said a minute ago, I need to find my reciprocal of this fraction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my first fraction straight on across. I'm going to say 1/8. This time I'm going to multiply because I'm reversing this fraction. I'm going to say 4/3, which we can, now this is my reciprocal of 3/4. Now we just work it out as we would any other multiplication problem when we're multiplying fractions. We would say 1 times 4 over 8 times 3. And we know that 1 times 4 is 4, and 8 times 3 is 24. Now we also know that this can be reduced. I think we can reduce it by 4. 4 divided by 4, and 24 divided by 4. 4 divided by 4 would be equal to 1, and 24 divided by 4 would be equal to 6. So that 1/8 divided by 3/4 is equal to 1/6. Okay, let's go ahead and try another example. Then we'll call this one example 2. In this example, we're going to take 1/2, we're going to divide that by 2/3. Remember, I have to change this fraction into the reciprocal form. So I'm going to rewrite my 1/2, and I'm going to multiply now. Change this fraction, reverse it. I call it inverting. 3 over 2. And then we're just going to multiply it out like we would any other fraction that we were multiplying. We'll say 1 times 3 over 2 times 2. We know that 1 times 3 is 3, and we know that 2 times 2 is 4. So that 1/2 divided by 2/3 is equal to 3/4. Go ahead and try another example. Example 3. Here we're going to divide 1/4 by 3/8. Now, as I've said earlier, we've got to take and find a reciprocal of 3/8. So we'll leave 1/4 alone. Now we're going to multiply the reciprocal of 3/8, which is 8/3. Now we've noticed that, look, I've got a like denominator and a like numerator. And as we learned earlier, we can divide that or simplify it if it'll go evenly by a number. And in this case, it will. We know that 4 divided by 2 is 2. And we know that 8 divided by 2 is 4. Bring our denominator over. Then we just simply combine our numerators and our denominators. 1 times 4 over 2 times 3. In this case, let's do our arithmetic. 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. Draw our fraction bar. Now, quickly I can see that both these numbers can be divided by 2. Which will now be equal to 4 divided by 2 would be 2. And 6 divided by 2 would be equal to 3. So that 1/4 divided by 3/8 is equal to 2/3. Okay, we're going to try one last problem here. Call it example 4. This time we're going to divide the whole number 4 by 3/4. This might look a little scary at first, but remember the rules for whenever you got a whole number. So we're going to take and we're going to change that into a fractional form, 4/1, because we know that any number divided by itself would equal itself. So 4 divided by 1 would be equal to 4, which is what we had in our original problem. And then we're going to take and find a reciprocal of 3/4, which is 4/3. Then we're just simply going to combine our numerators, which is 4 times 4, over our denominators, which is 1 times 3. We'll now do our arithmetic. 4 times 4 is 16, and 1 times 3 is 3. Now we know we cannot leave this answer in this form because it can indeed be reduced. We know that 3 will go into 16 5 times because 5 times 3 is 15, which leaves us 1 left over, and bring our denominator over. So that 4 divided by 3/4 is equal to 5 1/3.